Steven, tell us a little bit about Dispatch, the story behind it and what it's all about.
Dispatch is it's a feature film that I directed and co-wrote with my writing partner, producing partner, Michael. It's based on true experiences of Michael as a limousine dispatcher. It tells the story of one night in the life of a Hollywood limousine dispatcher.
10-4, Nesto.
He's got to deal with celebrities on the phone, the drivers.
Look what happens when I leave the door open.
It's also the night of a big premiere, so he's got to get all the cars there, he's coordinating all that activity.
Greg, I don't want you to break any laws, understand? But get back to Café Francois as soon as possible.
And it also is the one night in this guy's life when his wife has filed for divorce.
God damn it! Where is he?
This is a man who at one time was a real successful Hollywood player, and now he's a dispatcher dispatching limos to Hollywood players.
What'd you say? Trying to keep me down because you had it made and you blew it.
Where'd you hear that?
And so the central question of the movie is what went wrong? How'd this guy end up here?
So Michael, when you obviously this is a very personal story for you because you lived it in a lot of ways. How did you feel comfortable coming to Steven and going, I've got this idea, what do you think about it?
Well, we met driving limousines together a long time ago, and we talked about making movies. Most of the ideas I pitched to Steven, he hated. But I remember being in the dispatch office one night, seeing the interactions with the drivers coming to the window and the wingman and the phones ringing and people screaming and general pandemonium. And it just looked like an interesting setup.
Yeah, once I got the idea from Michael, once he pitched it to me, I mean, it's obviously when I tell it to people, the response is, like, whoa, tell me more. And that's how I felt. So I just asked Michael to tell me more. And I had a pad, I had my computer, and he would just tell me as many things as he could remember about the experiences that he'd had, the people that he'd worked with. And I just took, we just wrote it all down, just got all the raw material for it. That was the research.
Yeah, I've got to say, everything that happens in this movie happened.
I'm gonna borrow against my kid's college fund.
I feel completely unoriginal. Nothing is made up.
When I make the deposit in the morning, I'll replace the cash. No one will even know it's gone.
The truth is, well, as they say, the difference between truth, a movie that's true and a movie that's not, in fiction it has to be believable. So we had to really tone down a lot of stuff. Because if to do the real thing, people would go, oh, that's stupid, that could never happen.
So obviously you were co-workers. Why Steven? I mean, he was just another limo driver. What did you see in him that said, okay, this is the guy that's going to help make this a reality?
You test people when you first meet them, especially in this town. Everybody's a director and everybody's an actor and everybody's a screenwriter, and most people, of course, are not. So when Steven and I met, we started talking, and it was like, this guy's the real deal.
When we met, we were driving limousines. I had already, I'd been to film school. I'd made films in film school. While I was in school, I actually was nominated for an American Cinema Editors Eddie Award. And then when I came to LA, I took a job driving limousines, but I had already edited a film. That's what I came here for. I was hired to edit a low-budget feature film, and I did that. So the ball was already rolling, and by the time Michael and I started, our conversations and our friendship, it was sort of building on all that. We were, I would ask him questions about his acting experience off Broadway and in the films that he'd done and producing films. He'd ask me questions about my films and things that I'd done. We talked about life. We were good friends. We had a lot in common right from the start.
So I know, Steven, as an editor, you understand that films, television shows are often, in a sense, rewritten in the editing room. Michael had said everything that you see on the screen is true. It really happened. But how did it change from the original story, the original screenplay, to the end product?
And one of the problems, I think, is, most films, they have an A story and a B story, a plot and a subplot. And, when the film is shot in multiple locations and with multiple characters, it carries you along in a really clear way, so here's the story of the man and the wife, and boom, we cut to here's the story of the man with his boss. Problem with shooting a movie in one location, as tightly written as the script was, it was hard to follow, like A story and B story. Here's the A story of a man trying to get all these cars out, blah, 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 and then something would happen in his personal life, and it's another phone call. So I ended up having to really trim it down in the editing process. Story plot lines that we'd spent so much time just had to go away. And in the end, the film is better for it, but it's a lot shorter than I thought it would be.
There's a lot of people out there that have the same goals and dreams of making their first independent feature, putting on your producer and writer and director hats and editor hats. What was the biggest challenge of getting this thing off the page and onto the screen?
Well, yikes, exactly. I mean, making a film I don't have to tell you, is a huge undertaking.
Okay, good. Moving on.
You've got to feed people and clothe them and keep them happy and take them someplace they don't necessarily want to be when they don't want to be there, and get them to do things they don't particularly want to do, and then get them back.
It looks like you both survived.
Yeah.
We survived okay. I mean, the key is having really talented people, working with really, really talented people.
Speed.
76 Charlie, take 5. Mark?
Starting tight again, Matthew?
Just in general, I mean, the independent film world has really become, I mean, the truly free film world, you know, has become almost an established thing now, where, you know, there's people, like I was saying before, Angela, who we can go to. She's got a team of people that are in the indie film world. I don't know that was so common before.
Yeah, you'd have to piece it together. You'd have to find people who had specialized experience, and now it seems to be the norm.
Yeah, or going for, like, you know, oh, this person was, you know, so-and-so's assistant, and now they want to step up, and so you're kind of like having to deal with, you know, somebody just now getting their legs in a certain kind of a job, whereas here on this film, I had a production designer who'd done it, you know, a dozen times before. You know, Andy Hay, our sound designer, you know, done 60 films.
In terms of the business and the quality of films that are made, I think what's extraordinary today is that real independent films, not studio independent films, there's an enormous amount of experience of people who work at low budget.
Is it because the tools themselves, like, you know, you can have a media composer running on a laptop and it's affordable? Or is it because there's been this democratization about the cost of these things? Or
I think it's all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you've got the, you know, the Canon 7D or the Canon 5D, you know, and the Red camera and a media composer available right there on a laptop computer, you know, just to plug in a hard drive, Firewire 800, and you're ready to go. I mean, naturally, that's going to make it more accessible to more people.
Thank goodness. You still have to be able to write. You still have to be able to act. You still have to be able to direct.
Yeah, I mean, you can learn how to edit in an afternoon, but can you learn what to edit, or, you know, where to make how to make those decisions? Can you develop your sensitivity to drama, to comedy, to knowing where to make the cuts and why? You know, that's the stuff that takes the practice, and that's the work of a lifetime.
so we talked a lot about the creative elements behind putting the story together. Let's talk about some of the nuts and bolts of the actual production elements. What format did you guys shoot for this?
We shot on the Red camera.
We had audio hardwired to the Red camera, and then we also had, you know, hard drive backups.
So you didn't do the traditional double system sound like you wouldn't do in film. It was all right to the camera, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And what was it about the Red camera that attracted you to using that format?
Well, for me, I mean, it just looks beautiful. It was the closest thing I could think of to simulating that film look. And also the lenses, you know, we had prime lenses that we used, Cooke S4s, and that made a huge difference too.
Now, at the time that you guys used Red, there wasn't Media Composer 5 and all its capabilities with AMA. So what was the post-process that you used? Because there's a lot of different ways that you can skin that cat with Red. What one did you do?
Well, we knew we were going to Avid. We were hoping at the time to possibly be able to do a DS online. And so we went the route of using Red Rushes to convert all the Red media to DNX HD36. And from there, that generates an ALE, and we took our ALE to another website called idolum.com that was able to patch our ALE that got some information from the tape field that we needed, the DS needed, so it could relink to all the media. And so we worked offline with DNX HD36, and we were able to just hand off a bin in the DS, and it instantly came online.
How many of these Red-based productions have you worked on?
Dispatch is my third Red camera feature.
This stuff, you know, it's changing almost daily. How did it change from like the first one you worked on to Dispatch?
Wow, by the time Dispatch came along, then Red Rushes had been finely tuned at that point in time to generate that DNX HD36. We didn't have issues of metadata. We didn't have that we had originally with there's a lot of bugs in the earlier versions of Red Rushes that made making it online a lot more difficult. And actually we had to use an intermediate at that point in time of Monkey Extract to actually go back to our online. Now at this point in time, we're able to use Red Rushes that just generates that DNX HD36 media, gives us your ALE, it goes right into the Avid. It's just, you know, after your transcode time is done, it's a quick link into the Avid as it just unwraps those quick times in the MXF media.
I kind of enjoy telling people that I edited the entire film on a laptop computer. you know, my laptop computer that I got a couple of years ago, and I have it all tricked out. I got a little keyboard that I lay an overlay on the. Everybody sees all the colors. They're like, you know, what's that? Special computer, but it's, you know, it's the Avid keyboard overlay for the laptop. And anywhere I go, I could just take the hard drive, the laptop, and I'm working on dispatch. I programmed one of the keys to go full screen, you know, when I needed it to, because I didn't have an external monitor I was working with, and I would just, you know, put my face really close to the screen so I could try to get the effect of what it's going to look like on the big screen.
So it's literally just your media composer and a laptop at home, you know, in the off hours.
That's it.
Don't you get tired of cutting non-stop all day long?
Yeah, well, you know, people look at me like I have 3 heads when I tell them that I've been editing all day long on Entourage, and then I go home and edit for another 6 hours on Dispatch. I'm pretty much obsessed. Let's just face it. You want to do it again?
Yeah, I would like to.
Let's do it one more time. It doesn't even feel like a decision or a choice. You know, I just had to decide it's something I'm going to do. This is something I've dreamed about, you know, making my own feature film. You know, obviously in pre-production, I was not taking any editing work, even though I've done a bunch of shows and I get calls a lot to work on shows. I definitely had to make the choice to focus completely on the film. I had to devote everything to casting and to scouting location and building the sets and getting everything ready. And of course, during production, I wouldn't, you know, there's no way I could take on a show. But as soon as production was over, within 2 weeks, I started on season 6 of Entourage as an editor. And then it's just a juggling act. Then it's just, you know, okay, edit for whatever, 10 hours a day and get my cut out for Entourage, and then go home and edit for another 4 to 6 hours, or, you know, in the middle of the night have a wild idea about something I want to try. And, you know, great thing is I'm the editor, so I could just wake up and go in the other room and, you know, try something out.
I noticed when we were sitting in your editing room and you're cutting this episode of Entourage, you had the script-based editing model up, you had the script up. Yeah. How do you employ that on Entourage? Did you use it on Dispatch as well? And what benefits does it really bring to you during the edit?
I can't work without it. I mean, it's an indispensable tool. I find it more useful in shows like Entourage and Community because, you know, as comedies, they require you to find the best line reading for the setup for the jokes, and there's more call to use script because you can jump around to different takes as needed to get the best line reading for every single line. I rely on it less with the movie because with Dispatch, you know, takes play out longer. There's not as much need to break it down line by line. I really want to see how a take is going to play out. I really want to watch it from the beginning and get the emotional effect from beginning to end. Where it comes in handy, even in that situation, is if I just need a little reminder of, like, you know, where was that take that had this thing or that thing happened in the middle of it, then I can go across to the script and find it. Okay, that's the one, but then I'll go back to the beginning and use it.
Did you mention you went to film school, I believe?
I did go to film school,
and
yeah.
Drew, yourself?
I went to a school called Video Symphony in Burbank.
Excellent, okay.
When I first decided to go to film school, the decision was, you know, can I go to a place that's going to really allow me the opportunity to make films? Because that seemed to be the most important thing. It's interesting now, you know, anybody can really do that. If you get, you know, a high-def camera and a student version of Avid for a few $100, you know, you're set. It seems to me now more film school is, the benefit you can get out of it is to learn about the business, to learn about, you know, I would think learn about writing and storytelling. For example, we have our associate producer, Kevin Slee, who's a young guy. He's only 20 years old. He's still a sophomore at Chapman University, and he's learning incredible things about the business, negotiations, business contracts, storytelling, of course. And he's getting to make his films from the first semester, the first year, and it's very impressive what he's coming out with. In addition to they encouraged him to do an internship. He's interning with a veteran producer, learning all kinds of things about the business there.
Now, Steven, this was the first project you'd worked on with Drew as your assistant?
Yeah.
How did you find him?
Well, I found Drew through the Avid website, actually. Right on the home page it said, Heist, shot with the red camera, edited on Avid, and there was a quote of how great that was by the editor who did that. And so I called that editor up. His name is Drake Silliman. I called him up and I asked him, you know, who his assistant was, how he got it done. He gave me Drew's name. He said he's fantastic. Get him while he's cheap. And I did.
You know, obviously his skills with the red camera played a big part of this, but you must, you know, as an editor, have certain things you look for in an assistant. A lot of up-and-comers out there looking to break into the business, and assistant's really the first logical step for them. Yeah. What are you looking for in an assistant editor?
First and foremost, I'm looking for someone who's passionate. I'm looking for someone who's got experience and who's, you know, really on top of the game in terms of organizing material, getting it into the system, preparing it for me. I'm able to turn to Drew and tell him what I need, and I get it.
That's really your goal as an assistant editor, to be able to provide that for the editor, to try and alleviate some of the other stresses that may come if you start thinking about, oh, is this going to work? So you want to, you know, make it the best situation possible for the editor where he can just sit down and do his thing.
Now, Andy, you're sort of in the same situation in that, you know, working professional and then you're doing this, I'll call it a passion project. What projects are you working on day to day outside of Dispatch, and how did you work those around your role on Dispatch?
Well, yeah, for me predominantly, I'm basically working nights and weekends on Dispatch.
And you describe yourself as a sound designer.
Yeah, essentially sound supervisor, designer, and mixer. I'm essentially providing as much of the sound work as possible. And that's the great thing about working in independent film, is that it forces you to learn all of those disciplines. I think in the studio system, a lot of guys get labeled as a dialogue editor or a Foley mixer or a re-recording mixer or so on. And the thing that I enjoy about independent film is that I get to wear all those hats and I get to learn all of those processes. And I think it also makes for a very economical post-process, because I'm always thinking from our spotting session about the end result. So I'm thinking about the mix from day one. So I'm cutting the backgrounds that I need, that I know I'm going to use. I won't cut the Foley that I know we're not going to need because we're going to do this one section MOS or as a montage or something. So it allows me to streamline the actual process of the post-sound.
It's been a fantastic experience. I can throw something out there in a general sense of a feeling I want, a certain emotion I want to have evoked or whatever, and Andy just run with it.
Friendship aside, you obviously at one point had to pitch him on the project. Were you brutally honest with him? Did you say, Andy, I'd love to work with you on this. Here's what you're going to have to do. Here are the constraints you have to do it in. I mean, how did you just sell him on the whole thing?
He just showed me the movie. I just watched the movie, and that was really it, you know. And in those situations, you know, working with your friends, you always enter a spotting session and hope, God, I just hope this movie doesn't suck, you know, because I don't want to have to lie about it. But I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Harry, call the Gordons. Tell them their car's on location.
And I think what's really amazing about this particular film is that it largely takes place in one location. So that creates a challenge in the sense that what is happening in that soundscape, what's shifting in that soundscape throughout the overnight that is where this movie takes place. And that's equal parts a challenge as much as it is thrilling to think about how do I create environments that change within the context of being in one location for an entire evening. And so we're relying on sounds that are very emotive and are very emotional in terms of the soundscape.
And more specifically, your ass.
They're not necessarily real or realistic, but they're hinting on the surreal a little bit.
What were the tools and the processes you used in terms of the sound part of the film to get this done?
Well, I came in specifically for post-sound, so I can't really speak for the production sound process, but for me it's fairly standard operation where I get QuickTimes and an OMF output from Avid, and just throw that into my Pro Tools, and boom, there it is.
Was the Pro Tools setup or how you approached the project any different because it was an indie film and because of the constraints you were working in?
Not so much, not really. I have 3 systems that I own, HD and a couple of LE systems. And the studios that I use for Foley ADR and for mixing are all HD rigs. And really with Pro Tools, regardless of the budget level of the film, we were able to use the same tools and we're able to apply the same techniques that we would use whether it's a $100,000 film or a $10 million film. And Pro Tools is relatively inexpensive when you think about it, like what you get and what you're able to achieve within that system. There's a lot of bang for your buck. And so I think it's more that we can apply a really big budget sound to an indie film versus like, oh, how are we going to achieve this with the constraints of our budget? No, we don't really have any constraints.
So Steven, this is your first venture into independent filmmaking and also being a director after many years of working as an editor. What made you think you were ready for this?
I don't know, I was crazy enough to think I could do it.
Is early key to all this stuff, you just have to be crazy enough to believe that it's possible?
Yeah, I mean, it's just following, your passion, following a vision. Good. Cut. I got into editing kind of by chance, and it's something I'm good at, but I never really identified myself in any one job per se. And I've always loved making films. I always knew that's something I wanted to do. And I made a lot of short films through the years. And I just really felt like it was time for me to do it in a longer format. At every step of the way, I'm like always questioning myself and always thinking, God, do I really have the tools? Do I really know? Is this the right thing? Is this the right way? And then you just do it. You just make choices and you move to the next step and you look back and you go, okay, that's what I did.
I can echo that sentiment exactly in that my first film that I sound designed was a completely chance occurrence. I spent many years in the record industry and was approached by a young filmmaker who was doing her AFI thesis film and asked me if I would complete the sound on her film. And I sort of looked at her and questioned why she was asking me, because I had no experience in film whatsoever. But decided to take the plunge, and I knew enough people that were working in film sound that I could ask a lot of questions. And by some stroke of luck, that film got to play at Cannes that year in the Shorts Festival. And then the phone started ringing, and then what do you know, I'm working in film.
Hi, Nick.
Good night.